Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and frankly baffling mysteries of the modern world. We're talking about the mighty Colorado River. Now, this is a waterway with an absolute 10 out of 10 elite resume. It carved the Grand Canyon, it powers the Hoover Dam, and it spans a massive 1,370 miles, starting all the way up in the snowy peaks of the Rockies. But here's the central mystery we're going to unpack today. Despite all of its majesty and sheer power, this iconic river mysteriously unrivers before it ever reaches the ocean. It just stops. So how does a massive river simply vanish? Let's find out.
Now, to understand just how bizarre this whole situation is, we got to start with the absolute basics. By definition, a river is a natural flowing watercourse that flows towards another body of water, like an ocean, a lake, or another river. It's a very simple, standard rule of nature. But the Colorado River? Yeah, it simply doesn't care about this rule.
So there's this stark, honestly kind of absurd contrast between expectation and reality here. You'd expect this massive waterway traversing the western United States to dramatically meet the Pacific Ocean, creating this lush, vibrant environment. But the reality? After traveling over 1,000 miles, instead of meeting the Pacific, it ends in a dry, textured patch of dirt. Where a thriving delta used to be, there's literally just dust. It essentially undergoes this official transformation from a mighty rushing river into what we might jokingly call a dry water feature.
Section 1. Breaking the hydrological rules.
Okay, let's dive into this. To figure out where all the water actually went, we have to track the river right from its origin and look at the unbelievable logistics of human thirst. We've effectively turned one of America's most iconic waterways into a giant plumbing project. Our journey begins high up at 10,100 feet above sea level at La Poudre Pass Lake. And almost immediately, the river starts breaking the rules. The Continental Divide is supposed to be the hydrological divide of the Americas, meaning water on the west stays west. But the city of Fort Collins, sitting on the east, basically decided they wanted that water more, so they just pull it through a tunnel right across the divide. Then, as the river continues downstream into drier areas, the town of Grand Junction takes a 3% cut to water their famous melons and keep the sprinklers running. So the draining begins really early on. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When the river hits the Hoover Dam and slows down to form Lake Mead, it arrives at Las Vegas. You'd probably expect a massive gleaming desert oasis like Vegas to be the ultimate water villain, right? Actually, scratch that. Las Vegas is surprisingly a model citizen in this story. They return nearly 100% of their indoor water back to the river. They are absolutely a shining example of urban water conservation. So if Vegas isn't draining the river dry, who is?
Section 2. The Great Desert Sucking. Moving further downstream to Lake Havasu, this is where the primary suspects enter the picture. This is where the region starts treating the Colorado River less like a natural wonder and more like a giant juice box. At Lake Havasu, two massive pipes swallow a huge portion of the flow. One pipe takes 8% of the river and sends it straight across the desert to Los Angeles and San Diego. Another takes 11% and sends it via a massive 30-meter-wide canal to Phoenix and Tucson. In fact, without that specific pipe, half of Phoenix and the entire city of Tucson literally couldn't exist. But the largest diversion is honestly wild. 20% goes to the Imperial Valley in California. Why? To grow winter vegetables. If you're eating anything green in the middle of winter, it's highly likely it came from a field watered by the Colorado River.
Seeing all those massive infrastructure projects sustaining entire cities and agricultural empires, a totally logical question pops up. Why don't we just leave some water for the river itself? Why has this giant plumbing project been designed without sparing a single drop for nature? Well, to answer that, we have to look away from the physical pipes and look back in time at the mastermind behind this whole tragedy.
Section 3. The 1922 Bad Math Disaster.
Turns out, the real culprit isn't just a physical pipe, it's a piece of paper. Specifically, a fiercely negotiated international agreement drafted over a century ago, back in 1922. This agreement between the U.S. states and Mexico is a colossal, darkly comedic, bureaucratic blunder that totally set the stage for the vanishing river we see today. When the stakeholders sat down in 1922, they officially divided up the river's annual flow on paper. They looked at the river and agreed to divvy up a massive 16 million acre-feet of water every single year. They sliced it up, assigned portions to different states and to Mexico, and shook hands.
But there was a glaring, fundamental flaw in their plan. So, the crucial point is, nature actually only provides about 13 million acre-feet of water per year. That's right. The negotiators promised 3 million acre-feet more than actually exists in the real world. They created a massive mathematical deficit right from day one.
As you can imagine, promising 3 million more units of a vital resource than actually exists creates what's perfectly described as a symphony of different problems. Because of this absurd baseline mathematical error, everyone relying on the river is currently scrambling to renegotiate their shares, all while nature itself is freaking out at record-breaking rates. The math never worked, and today, the consequences are definitely catching up with us.
Section 4, subtraction eventually equals 0.
Which brings us to the final leg of the river's journey. This is where the reality of that bad math finally collides with the physical water. By the time the Colorado River limps its way down to the Mexican border, only 10% of the original water is even left. And, per the terms of that 1922 treaty, Mexico takes that remaining sliver and immediately diverts it into a canal feeding the Mexicali Valley. When you do the math, when you subtract every single urban diversion, every tribal allocation, and every agricultural demand, you're left with exactly 0. 0 drops remaining to flow into the ocean.
The historical toll this has taken is just staggering. In the past, the end of the Colorado River was this massive, vibrant delta. It was an ecological wonderland where birds would flock, as the source material colorfully puts it, like boomers to Boca. But in the present day, that water is gone. Instead of supporting a lush delta, that water is trapped in pipes, busy sprinkling the 200 golf courses scattered across Phoenix and watering massive urban sprawl.
Now, the amazing thing is that nature hasn't entirely given up. Back in 2014, there was a brief, really fascinating experiment. A temporary agreement allowed a surge of water to actually flow down through the dry delta towards the sea. And almost instantly, the ecology and the wildlife bounced back. The bugs returned, the birds returned, and the green flourished. It proved, without a doubt, that the ecosystem could easily recover if we just gave it some water. But sadly, the funding for the experiment ran out, the water was stopped once again, and the wildlife disappeared just as quickly as it had arrived.
So here we are, we've got a beautiful, iconic specimen of a river that's essentially raw in the middle, trapped in a pipe, and officially reduced to a human-made logistical stalemate. It no longer rivers correctly, it's really just a Colorado water feature at this point. And this leaves us with a critical question to ponder. If a mighty river can be erased by bad math and a century-old piece of paper, can our modern bureaucracy ever rewrite the equation and let the river run its course before it's too late? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gives you a whole new perspective the next time you see a winter vegetable or a green golf course in the desert. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.